When I got home from work, I saw that my sister-in-law was back at our house. After her divorce, she had moved back in with her parents, and it seemed that she intended to stay with us for good. My spouse owns the house, and we have recently had a lot of arguments over his sister. My spouse would frequently say, almost haughtily, "I bought this house one day. I get to decide who lives here," in front of her. I received it from my father. I was taken aback, particularly when I saw my sister-in-law beaming with victory. My spouse has made things worse by casting me as the villain and including his parents in the dispute. I am prepared to confront each and every one of them, including my sister-in-law. I can't hold back any longer. Harrison is my name. I am employed by an IT firm and am 35 years old. Jake and I have been married for 4 years. My father died 5 years ago, and my mother passed away 10 years ago. My father used to talk lovingly about our home and how many family memories it held. He said to me, "This house is precious." Before he died, I told him not to say things like that. We should all live here together, please. We even had a running joke about his living to see his grandkids, but sadly, illness claimed his life far sooner than I had thought. The most difficult aspect was that he kept his sickness from me until it was too late to offer assistance. I was devastated to hear him finally admit, "Actually, I'm in the hospital," and I regretted having assumed he would always be okay. My then fiancé, Jake, consoled me following the burial, telling me, "Kelly, I'll be there for you. I'll stay by your side forever." I finally got married and inherited the house my father had left for us because of his words, which gave me the strength to face life without my parents. My father had the home remodeled not long after we moved there, giving it a whole new atmosphere. After a few months, we were fortunate to have Daisy, our 2-year-old daughter, who is currently going through a rebellious stage. The time I have with my family in this place is invaluable. Despite the difficulties, I came home one evening from a late shift to the sound of happy voices emanating from the living room. My spouse was clearly talking to someone other than our daughter. I opened the door softly and saw Veronica, my sister-in-law. "Veronica, why are you here?" "Oh, Kelly, long time no see. I haven't seen you in a while. How are your daughter and hubby?" "Well, I went through a divorce," Veronica answered. "I just told my brother about it." "You got divorced?" I asked, surprised. "Yes, my ex-husband has custody of our daughter, so I didn't have anywhere else to go." I was uneasy to hear Veronica disclose that she was divorcing, but I maintained my calm and feigned a grin. Jake and Veronica were so engrossed in their chat that evening that they failed to notice or offer to assist me as I began to prepare supper. The fact that they disregarded Daisy, our daughter, who was sitting and playing with blocks by herself, disturbed me the most. I sent a sharp look at Jake, since it was painful to watch her be left out. "Jake, could you please spend some time with Daisy?" "What? Is she not playing right now? She is all right on her own." "That's not the main idea. She appears to be alone. Just be with her until the meal is prepared." I hate it, but I'm getting to know Veronica. It has been a long time. "You can talk while playing with Daisy, can't you?" All right. I will see her," he complained, and Veronica giggled and made fun of Jake, who was obviously agitated, by saying, "A brother scared of his wife." My annoyance was heightened by the entire exchange between my irritated spouse and his sister, who was attempting to make him laugh. This was the last thing I needed when I was already so tired. It is a joint obligation to care for our child, but Daisy was receiving icy treatment from Jake instead of assistance. I could appreciate his joy at getting back in touch with Veronica, but there was no justification for ignoring our kid. Even worse, Daisy was left feeling alone and clinging to me as I prepared dinner. Later, Daisy had trouble sleeping until late at night due to their noisy drinking. Jake took a seat and carried on drinking by himself when Veronica departed. At that point, I lost all patience and finally expressed my displeasure. "Jake, what was with your behavior today?" "What? What makes a difference? I'm just enjoying myself while drinking." "You've been drinking all day, and your noise made Daisy go to bed late." "Yes, I apologize. Do you want to hear that?" "That's not a sincere regret. You always push things off on me without even bothering to tidy up after yourself. I'm over it." "Well, I'm the one making the money, so stop complaining." The beer can Jake was holding suddenly launched its contents at me, spilling onto the floor and splashing over my head. Although we had clashed in the past, it had never gotten this bad. His shout surprised me, and I stood still. We didn't say anything more before bed that evening. Jake remained grumpy when he woke up the following morning. Given the involvement of our child, I was unable to allow the matter to remain unresolved. I was eager to get our relationship back on track. I had been thinking about fixing things all the way home from work, but as soon as I came in the door, those thoughts vanished. Remarkably, Veronica returned to our home, and Daisy was left alone, staring boredly at the TV, just as before. When I saw this, I was unable to contain myself. "Jake, what's happening? Why are you ignoring Daisy once more?" "Never mind. She's not crying. She's fine." "That's not the main idea. In addition, I want to talk about something." Jake cut me off before I could say anything further. He cleared his throat theatrically, looked at Veronica, and then started talking again. "Veronica will move in with us at the beginning of next month. Could you just give her your room?" "What? What topic are you discussing?" "The end of the month marks the conclusion of Veronica's lease. She was a housewife, got divorced, and doesn't have any money. That's difficult, isn't it? I can't just accept this kind of stuff at such a fast pace. Why should my room be given up? If it's really that important, would you mind giving up your room? I'm utilizing mine. Daisy and you are able to share a room, right?" His outrageous demand astounded me. I just stood there, dumbfounded, watching Jake go on mindlessly. "As Veronica's brother, I want to support her until she gets back on her feet, since I know she's having financial difficulties. Is it not clear to you? However, why must I give up my room? How about Daisy and me? What's the deal with all the fuss? It is only a room. You are acting in a self-serving manner. You're not even thinking about Daisy or Veronica." "I'm not thinking about Daisy. How about you?" I fired back. "In any case, the choice has already been made. I'll throw you out of the house if you continue to oppose it." "Throw me out? Excuse me. I received this house from my dad. You have no right to determine who lives in this house." Jake laughed. "I purchased this home. It's my residence. Who remains is up to me." I was so angry, I could not stand it. For Daisy's sake, I held back and talked as coolly as I could. "My father gave me this house. It is irrelevant. This is my home," he declared obstinately. "Are you truly comfortable doing this? Getting rid of me will ruin our relationship." Veronica sat there grinning, as if she really believed Jake's claim to the house and had no intention of moving anytime soon, right next to his husband. Usually, my spouse and I shared our bedroom, but on that particular night, my sister-in-law occupied the bed. Reluctant to sleep in the same room as my husband, I curled up on my daughter's little blanket, with my body dangling over the side. The sound of objects being moved in the hallway woke me up the next morning. My husband and Veronica were the ones who took my stuff out of the bedroom without my permission. My rage grew until I was unable to control myself anymore. "Hey, what do you think you're doing with my stuff? You're awake. I see. Great, assist us," my spouse said nonchalantly. "Stop. Don't handle my belongings without my consent," I yelled. "Have you not grasped it yet?" he said icily. "Since I'm the only reason you're here, please quit whining and assist us. My folks will be here shortly." "What?" I let out a gasp. He leaned close to me and whispered, "We should keep our problems to ourselves. I'll give divorce some serious thought if you create a huge fuss." Before he could say anything more, the doorbell rang. His parents were present. We were cordial, even though I didn't have a close relationship with them. However, they gave me a harsh look. "Now we're on our way in," my mother-in-law angrily said. "We've heard you're giving Jake a hard time." "This is the house Jake bought, isn't it?" my father-in-law added. "Hold on, what?" "No, allow me to explain." I stepped quickly in front of them. "It's enough." My spouse cut me off. "Why won't you help when the family needs it?" "Exactly," his mom added. "Jake bought this house, so it's up to him whether Veronica lives here or not." It dawned on me that my spouse had misled his parents into believing he had purchased the house. Veronica and Jake, meanwhile, stood by with smug, unnerving expressions on their faces. Jake gathered us all in the living room and asked me to respond. "So, have you decided what to do? Will Daisy and you move out, or will you allow Veronica to live here? Are you serious?" Barely believing what I was hearing, I inquired. "Obviously, this is my home. Have you given my parents moving a thought?" By the way, it surprised me. "What? Since their house is becoming older, we will let them use Daisy's room." My in-laws and Veronica nodded in agreement as he continued. "That way, we can all live together again." I was suddenly overcome with rage. They had sincere intentions of stealing Daisy's room, all because of this absurd assertion that Jake was the property's buyer. I inhaled deeply and spoke to my in-laws in a composed manner. "There was a misunderstanding, Veronica, father, mother. It is not Jake who purchased this mansion. I received it as an inheritance from my father." While my in-laws were astounded, Veronica, who had fallen for Jake's deceptions, scowled at me. My spouse then angrily retorted, "What are you talking about? Do you desire a separation? Why do you continue to tell lies? Though I understand your need to maintain your composure in front of the family, I find it irksome not to be laughed at." "Then prove it. Prove this house is really yours," he said. "It's not possible, is it? You cannot prove that you are the owner." Veronica responded to his insult with, "Go on, prove it." I got up, went to a drawer, and took out the home register and a copy of my father's will. In front of my spouse and his family, I laid them out. "This is the proof. This is the home registry, and this is the will that my father left me. It is evident from the will that he owned the house." Upon viewing the documents, my spouse became pale and lost all words. It's obvious he didn't think I would have these. My father had died before we were married, and I had spoken with a lawyer about the legal implications of these documents. Nevertheless, my spouse persisted in maintaining the pretense in front of his relatives, pointing to the documents and saying they were fake. I didn't panic. "If you're not sure, have a look at the registry. It will demonstrate that I own the residence. That should be understandable even to you." "The deeds registry? What is that?" He seemed bewildered as he mumbled, "Of course you don't know. You've never bought a house yourself." I couldn't help but scoff. His relatives looked at him suspiciously, and he went silent. I was quite explicit in what I was saying. "This is not a misunderstanding. You are obviously not the owner. Your attempt to win your family over didn't work out. You simply made your own situation worse. Kelly, please calm down. There's no need to argue more. Let's," he stumbled. However, I was set on my course. "Our union has ended now. Go. You wanted a divorce." "No," he said, apologizing fervently. I was firm, though. I no longer felt anything for him. I had lost the love I previously had. My in-laws were enraged and chastised him for lying. Finally, my father-in-law produced the divorce documents, which my husband immediately signed. My in-laws apologized and gave me the paperwork with remorse in their eyes. "Kelly, we were unaware that our kid was lying. We sincerely apologize." "It's okay," I answered. Signing the paperwork helped me avoid trouble later on. My in-laws shunned him, and my sister-in-law lost it. They got into a heated quarrel, and they fled my house immediately when I threatened to call the police. After I sent in my divorce paperwork, the procedure was completed. Since then, my ex-husband relocated to a makeshift apartment close to his place of employment. But the problems didn't stop there. Not only did my sister-in-law ruin his image at work by causing a commotion, but her actions made matters worse. He's alone at work now, and his co-workers are staring at him icily. It will be interesting to observe how he handles this circumstance. In the meanwhile, my daughter and I have been living contentedly in the home my father left us. Our living arrangement seems a lot more comfortable now that there are extra rooms accessible. Although Daisy didn't seem to be especially happy with her father's actions, which alarmed me, I was afraid that she would feel lonely. She's carried on with her days in a good mood. I have no intention of ever making amends with Jake, and I plan to keep living blissfully in the house my father left me with my amazing kid. My suspicions were aroused when my mother-in-law smiled and spoke about a vacation to Hawaii. She has a ton of debt and finds it difficult to make her monthly payments, yet she still wants to travel. Why would she travel to Hawaii alone when I provide her money each month? This was absurd, and I couldn't accept it. My mother-in-law looked perplexed when I finally got angry and raised my voice. Then it dawned on me that this was all a part of my husband's plan. Startled by this revelation, I considered my circumstances. My name is Brittany. I'm 35 years old, and I lead a typical life while working as a regular employee at a general firm. I married Daniel 5 years ago, and since then, we have been enjoying a quiet, trouble-free life. However, the recent passing of my father-in-law presented an unexpected obstacle. I had been really welcomed by Daniel's family, and he had been a gentle, kind man who genuinely cared for us. It was difficult for me to accept his departure. Shortly after the burial, one evening at supper, Daniel brought up an odd subject. "Brittany, I know this sounds strange, but I was wondering if we should start helping my parents out with their mortgage next month." It astonished me. Aiding them? Why? Although your sister resides with your mother, isn't it terrible that your father passed away? Daniel clarified that he believed his mother could be having difficulty following the passing of his father. Daniel's sister, on the other hand, makes more money than him since she works for a famous firm and lives in their parents' home. Furthermore, my mother-in-law should continue to get my father-in-law's pension as he worked for a reputable firm until his retirement. However, Daniel and I both work for tiny businesses, and between us, our combined salary is probably less than normal for our age. In light of everything, I found it incomprehensible that we would need to give my mother-in-law money. Daniel, I said, I don't think your mother and sister are struggling financially. So why should we send them money? When I questioned why, I received an astonishing response. My mom has a lot of debt, even though everything looks good on the outside. How come is your mother in debt? It stunned me. Indeed, it's difficult to accept, but it's real. She hasn't discussed it with my sister at all. Though for some reason, I reasoned that we ought to assist her. However, what about your father's retirement funds? The majority of the money was used to pay for his operations, hospital stays, and burial costs. My mom is currently in a very difficult financial situation. It's a challenging situation, I said. Indeed it is. He bowed deeply and added, I realize this is a lot to ask, but I genuinely want to assist her. I was conflicted. My mother-in-law had previously assisted us on many occasions. She did all the housework and made dinner for us a lot. When I was looking for a job, she handed my husband money in secret when he changed jobs, and we were having trouble paying our bills. She was kind and humble in her response. Each time, I thanked her for her compassion, which I was always appreciative of. With her help, we were able to overcome several obstacles. I couldn't deny the fact that she was in difficulty now, especially in light of all the favor she had done for us. I reluctantly gave in to my husband's suggestion. We further reduced our spending after that day in order to provide financial assistance for my mother-in-law. Even though we weren't living opulently previously, we reduced the complexity of our meals and moved to less expensive appliances. My spouse started working overtime, and he started arriving home later each night. Then something occurred. One day, maybe from weariness, I had a temperature and passed out. My spouse stopped me as I was preparing to go to the hospital after reporting ill to work. Are you really heading to the hospital? Yeah, I am, I answered. It's only a fever, correct? When we need to conserve money, there's no reason to visit the hospital for a little fever. Though his remarks astounded me, I countered. But what if it's a viral fever, like the flu? We have fever reducers in our house. Simply accept them and get some slumber. You'll recover. Visiting the hospital is an unnecessary expense. That is untrue. Please pay attention to what I have to say. Say, at all costs, avoid visiting the hospital. Remember that we are saving money. I was forced to stay at home after hearing those remarks, and I spent the next 3 days in bed. My dissatisfaction with my hubby has increased gradually after that occurrence. We went to my husband's parents' place a few months later to see how my mother-in-law was doing. Upon entering the living room, I saw that there were travel bags and clothes all over the place. Did you just finish packing? I asked, perplexed, looking at my mother-in-law. She smiled. Well, I guess I'm going to Hawaii this time. A journey to Hawaii? I repeated, astonished. Indeed, she replied. Mary promised to accompany me. Would you like to come with us? Brittany, my sister-in-law, extended her offer with joy. I was shocked, and Mary started clapping excitedly. Before I could respond, I thought, what a fantastic concept. You ought to accompany us. But something didn't sit right with me. They had been getting money from us, and now they were eagerly planning a vacation overseas. As my mother-in-law and Mary continued chatting excitedly about their trip, completely oblivious to my dismay, my mother-in-law exclaimed, I'm ecstatic. I've never been to Hawaii before. Same here, Mary said, and this time of year, It's surprisingly affordable. That's right, my mother-in-law added. Brittany, don't worry. We'll pay for your travel expenses if you come with us. My heart sank. We've been so grateful for everything since you and Daniel got married, Mary went on, still unaware of my anguish. Finally, I couldn't contain myself any longer. With a raised voice, I faced them. Stop making jokes about traveling overseas. What the heck are you thinking? My sudden outburst stunned everyone, and their smiles vanished. They froze. What's wrong? My mother-in-law asked. Did we say something that upset you? That's not the point. I snapped. How can you invite me on a vacation? Do you understand the circumstances we're in? Calm down, Brittany. What's the source of this rage? Mary inquired politely. My emotional control was wearing thin. You should pay off your debts before taking a trip, even if you have the money to do so. Debts? Each of them repeated, perplexed. We're trying to give you money, but we can hardly save any. I was unable to even go to the hospital while I was unwell. And now you're organizing a trip. How can you ignore our circumstances? I broke down in tears as I vented my emotions. I couldn't decide if I was grieving, furious, or both, but I was painfully aware of how profoundly our sacrifices had impacted me. Startled, Daniel raced over. What are you saying to my mother? I began to explain, but Daniel interrupted me. Enough now, he responded. We're leaving. As he attempted to help me up, my mother-in-law spoke gently. Wait a minute. Which debts are you referring to? I came to a halt. How come you don't owe a lot of money? Still shaky, I asked. Her face lit up. No, it doesn't exist. My spouse's inheritance and pension are still mine. If I was in debt, I wouldn't be organizing a trip abroad. I was taken aback. At that moment, I realized the full extent of the issue. I felt a wave of anger as I tried to accept the truth about our circumstances. We were on a strict budget, and I wondered why my husband's salary hadn't improved despite his regular overtime. Why hadn't my mother-in-law, who had always been kind, recognized the money we gave her? Then it hit me. My husband had been lying to me about the need for money. Our need to send money was never really there. If I had only given it more careful thought, I could have gotten help as soon as I felt sick and recognized the lie. Our economic way of living was clearly ineffective. It had been tough to make a cool decision, given our precarious financial situation. Upon realizing what I had done, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law cast suspicious glances at Daniel. Daniel, what is happening? Brittany claims that the reason for the money transfer was your debt. What's the actual tale? They inquired. Daniel stumbled, obviously trying to think of an explanation. No, that isn't how it is, actually. Explain in detail. We must comprehend what is happening, they insisted. Daniel appeared to be fumbling to get control of the situation. My feelings for him had entirely faded. I confronted him, my annoyance exploding. What does this signify? Neither your mother nor sister had any debts. Where did all the cash I sent you each month disappear? He started mumbling. Well, abandon lying, I said. Tell me everything. Acceptance of the facts he shared was difficult. I went to nightclubs because I accepted an invitation from a colleague. You've been attending clubs at night? I couldn't believe it. Yeah, I guess I just went too far without realizing it. This is unbelievable. You first mentioned sending money when your father passed away not long ago, and you were making purchases at nightclubs. This is not excused. Daniel apologized profusely, trying to explain. All I needed was a shift in scenery. It didn't seem like a huge issue to me. Excuses like this were not acceptable. How could you be so careless using my hard-earned money for nightclubs while lying about needing it? That is something I will never be able to forgive. Brittany, I didn't mean to do you any harm. I simply went a little crazy, he responded. I was beyond angry. His hollow excuses didn't help the situation. It's difficult to rebuild trust after it's been broken, particularly in a marriage. I lost all affection for him because of his dishonesty and lack of sincerity. No matter how long he apologized, it was never going to be enough to mend the wounds in my heart. Living with someone who lied to fulfill his own needs was not something I could stand. In utter despair, I spoke to him one last time. I'm tired of it. I didn't mean to hurt you with insufficient justification. You humiliated me, lied to me, and went out to clubs while I was sick with a fever. This is not credible. As the reality of the situation dawned on Mary, her surprised voice could be heard in the background. You've caused months of agony for Brittany. I will never forgive you. Mom, never again associate with us. Are you following? Never again reveal your face here. With tears in her eyes, Mary pulled Daniel from the house and tossed him outside. She shut off all communication with him and locked the door. He tried to open it, but it was still closed. I'm so sorry, he pleaded from outside. My sister-in-law spoke with worry. I'm not sure what more I can say, but please try to forget about that man and focus on finding your own happiness. She gave me a strong hug, and her action brought me a wave of comfort and encouragement. I felt a sense of closure after expressing my sincere appreciation and moved out of the residence I had shared with my spouse. Since my employment was steady and secure, it was advantageous that I could find a new apartment close to where I worked. It took time and effort, but I had adjusted to living alone after the divorce. I spoke with an attorney who helped me with the divorce procedure. Since my spouse was obviously at fault, the case moved quickly. I made sure I got the most money back by pursuing reimbursement for the funds he had fraudulently taken from me. My ex-husband received a lump sum payment as settlement, and now he had to deal with a much harsher reality. He used to frequently visit nightclubs, but now he worked night shifts and endless overtime. Stress and his job took up much of his life. Even though our divorce was official, I continued to receive communications from my ex-husband. I made a mistake. Pardon me, please. I no longer frequent nightclubs. I'm in a difficult situation, but I don't want to get back together. Could you give me a loan? I can only trust you. He continually pleaded for money, and all I could feel was sympathy for him. After settling the financial issue, I decided to cut off communication with him and move on with my life. In the meantime, my bond with my sister-in-law and mother-in-law remained strong. They continued to check in on me and have been a fantastic source of support. Their support and care have been invaluable. My mother-in-law recently shed happy tears when she saw that I had lifted my mood. I'm so glad to see you doing well, Brittany, she murmured, her voice quivering with affection. You've persevered so admirably through everything. Don't worry about me. I'm managing on my own. I comforted her. I knew you could conquer this, she retorted, smiling comfortingly at me. Remember, Mary and I are here for you whenever you need us. I said, thank you so much, overcome with thankfulness. Next time, let's take a trip to Hawaii together, just the three of us. She said, I'm looking forward to it, with warmth. We'll get to create new memories and have a great escape. I'm not sure I could have handled the difficulties of the divorce without the steadfast support of my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Their unwavering support and sincere want for my happiness have been a ray of hope during a trying time. With their help, I'm more motivated than ever to live a strong, purposeful life and to look forward to the future with optimism.